Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I wanna finally bring you my Exsanguinate Scion build guide, low life energy shield version. So quite a lot of people have asked me to make this build guide, but I still wasn't happy with this version. So I did make some improvement, and I think right now it is in pretty good spot. So let's get into it. Here is a little showcase. Inscribed Ultimatum is where this build excels at. So this is area level 83 defeat waves of enemies and some pretty easy mods. This build can't do limited flasks and reduced cooldown only, so everything else is fine. So let's have a look. The reason why this build is so good in Inscribed Ultimatums and in mapping is because we have quite a lot of recovery. We have energy shield on kill, energy shield on hit, and energy shield on block. So this is the 4 exalted orb one, and I have to remove my discipline aura to get some more life to be able to use my corrupting fever, and then I just use it again, and corrupting fever works for entire map. This build has around 2 million DPS, so it's not like super good, not super great, so not super bad, and it's not that great recovery on bosses. So I did kill pretty much every boss in the game except for 3rd invitation, but it's not easy. The only thing that I like to do with this character is mapping and ultimatums. So as you can see, recovery is really good, and our life is recovered by vitality, so we don't have to worry about that. And we need some life unreserved to be able to cast Exsanguinate. So as you can see, it's quite easy. So I did so far around 100 of those, and I did fail only around 4, and 2 of them I did fail to ruin and 2 of them to dying, and both of them I think were like in super early stages of this build. Okay, so let's have a look at POB. Of course I'm gonna link it in the description. Let's have a look at tree first. From just starting leveling to the end game. You're gonna start it as a Scion and go here, take some damage nodes, pretty easy pathing. Then you're gonna take in Crew Lab, you're gonna take Gladiator. Unfortunately, as Scion you don't get really anything from normal lab, just 1 passive point. And you're gonna take some life nodes here, here and here. And after that, unfortunately, you have to travel all this way to get some additional life and damage. After that, before you get your Uber Lab and after you get your Mercy Lab, you will take Necromancer to be able to make your offering affect you. And at that point you will have some block from Gladiator and from offering, so we will go block. So you will take these block nodes here, here and here, as well as some additional damage. After you get your Uber Lab, you should go low life version with Petrified Blood, so you will take Pain Attunement and some more life and damage. Later you will go for Cluster Jewels. Also, once you get your Uber Lab, you can get Path of the Witch, so you will start taking these nodes and you can remove all of those nodes. So at some point when you can afford, you can buy Cluster Jewels and go low life. You can go low life even before you get Cluster Jewels, probably around the point you reach maps, like yellow maps. And you will remove all of these nodes and take cluster jewels. So in terms of cluster jewels, you want pretty much anything that gives you increased physical damage. So if you can't afford 3 nodes one, you can take just 2 of them. There is also a 4th one, which is fizz damage and resistances that take any of them, it doesn't really matter which one. As for medium, you want fizz damage overtime multiplier. Blood Artist and Rend are 2 of the best ones, but there are some other ones that give 8 to 10% that are cheaper, so you can't get them too. For small ones, you have 2 options. You can either go for Brush with Death for some life on kill and damage overtime multiplier, or for Fatal for additional life. It just depends if you want more life or more damage. I prefer to go for 1 Brush with Death to get some life on kill, but you can also get Brush with Death on medium and then go for 2 life ones. Okay, so eventually you want to swap to ES. You will remove all of your life points and go for ES ones. So over here, here, and get yourself energy from within. Also, you will replace your Fatals with energy from Node and ES instead of life jewels. On mediums, you can get Vile Reinvigoration for some additional energy shield, and your large should stay the same. Also, you still want to get 1 Brush with Death. I should have 1 over here. Yes, here is 1. And at the start, you don't need to go for a second cluster jewel. You can get some ES over here and some damage over here. But eventually, second one is better. Also, I went for Ghost Weaver. I don't think it mattered that much. Your physical damage on hit is not that big, so you don't get much leech, but it's still pretty good for bossing. And at that point I bought Watcher Eye, so energy shield on hit while affected by discipline. Vitality 1 doesn't matter as much, but it's nice to have. Discipline is pretty big. Also, Might of the Ming plus Unnatural Instinct is pretty good combo. Everything in this area is improved, and everything in this area is taken by Unnatural Instinct, all of the small ones, so skill duration and damage over here and some cast speed over here. Okay, so let's move on to skills. You will start leveling with Explosive Trap to level 12. It doesn't really matter, you can use some other skill, you just want to get to level 12 to use Exsanguinate. Supported with Efficacy and either Onslaught or Cruelty, depending if you want more damage or some speed. Also at level 18 you want to use Corrupting Fever. This will give you a buff that will stack Corrupting Blood with each hit. To move you will use Smoke Mine and Flame Dash, and you actually don't get Smoke Mine as Scion, so if you can, you should take it from some other character or maybe some friend, but it's not that big of a deal, you can choose just Flame Dash. And Vulnerability to cast on bosses to increase some damage. At level 28 you will swap to Spellslinger setup with Exsanguinate and Rip. So what Spellslinger does, it turns these skills into auras and they will reserve mana. And when you use Frenzy, both of these skills will be casted, so it's pretty good leveling setup. And you will still have some mana unreserved, so you can feed War Banner. Then once you reach maps, maybe even once you reach yellow maps, you will swap to low life version and self-cast Exsanguinate. This is set up for your links. Chain is pretty good for clear, and when you are killing bosses you can swap to Swift Affliction instead of Chain. Your aura setup should be War Banner, Petrified Blood, Pride, and Herald of Purity on your life. Petrified Blood will make 40% of your life loss be prevented when you are on low life, so it's bit of survivability, but this damage will be taken as dots, so if you have some good recovery, it's prevented. But the most important thing about this is this enables you to go low life, so you get pain attunement, so 30% more spell damage. But I didn't like Petrified Blood because you don't get anything against dots, so it only prevents damage from hits, so I was dying quite often against DOTs. Also at that point you want to get yourself Desecrate, Bone Offering and Tempest Shield set up in your main hand weapon, so in your wand, because you will get trigger a socketed spell when you use skill. So every time you cast your Exsanguinate, these 3 spells will be casted. So it automates using your Bone Offering for some block and life when you block. And life when you block is pretty good when you are low life, because it's pretty much doubled the effectiveness because your life is so small, your life pool. And you can also use Vitality, because your recovery will be pretty low, but if you use Herald of Purity and Vitality on your life, you will reserve around 60% of your life, so Enlighten is pretty good. So you will die more often to one-shots, but you will die less to DOTs, so it's up to you if you want to use Vitality. Then eventually, if you go ES, you use pretty much the same links. Eventually you go for Awakened Gems. The most important one is Chain, because it gives you +3 instead of +2. Corrupting Fever doesn't change. Your auras will be Herald of Purity, War Banner, Pride and Vitality reserve on your mana, and on your life you will reserve Discipline with Arrogance. You can also use Shield Charge to get some Fortify and better movement instead of Smoke Mine, and still use Flame Dash with Arcane Surge. You can still spellcast, self-cast Vulnerability. I do it still, but if you don't want to do it, you can replace 1 Circle of Guilt with Curse on Hit Vulnerability ring. So in terms of items, you will use pretty much only yellow items and shafts plus Present of Chayula to go low life. In your wand, the most important stat is +1 to level of physical spell skills or +1 to spell skills. It doesn't really matter which one. And second one, physical damage over time multiplier, but if you can't get 2 of them at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. +1 is still pretty good. On your shield you want ES on block, and when you are live version you can get life on block. Also 12% chance to block spell damage is pretty much needed, otherwise you almost can't get block cap. I am using 2 Circles of Guilt. It gives around 10% DPS, so it is pretty good. Each one of them is 10% DPS, but if you want more survivability you can go for yellow rings. And for flasks you use pretty much only blue flask, and you can use Rumi. Before you go for this cluster jewel setup, you can take these nodes, and if you take them you don't need Rumi, but with 2 cluster jewel setups it's pretty tight on points, so I started using Rumi. And in terms of jewel, I already talked about them in 3 sections, so that's pretty much it. So it's pretty good for ultimatums, for mapping, but not that great for bossing. If I would improve this build a bit, I would buy Circle of Guilt with vulnerability on hit and double corrupted shafts, but I think it's pretty much reached its peak, so I'm not gonna improve it any further. So that's gonna be it. You can check out my Twitch, ZanM. Gonna play this build a little bit, but I'm mostly focusing now on my next build, which is Toxic Rain. So that's gonna be it for today. See ya.